Hi, thanks for tuning in. My name is Nache Snow, and I am a crafting junkie. Whatever can be made, I try to make it. I just love making stuff. Today, we are going to make garland out of wooden beads. And right now, you just see me pulling out some of my jewelry tools because I'm not sure exactly how much I'll need for this project. Also, over the years, because I've been into jewelry making, I have like all of these amazing beads that I've gotten from local stores, and some are like African beads, and some are just the regular kind of small glass beads. But for this project, I'm just kind of looking at all of the beads that I've purchased that might be a little bit more high quality, and then also some beads like from old necklaces that might work. They might not be as high quality, but still will make for a beautiful garland. So a lot of times people like to really plan out kind of how the pattern of their garland or necklace or whatever it is that they're making, like they try to plan it out. And sometimes I do that too. But for this, I figured I just kind of look at all of the material and then just kind of figure out what I want to do. So what do you need for this particular project? You can order the wooden beads online on Amazon, because right now probably shipping is the best, or you can look for some online stores. Like if you have some local jewelry stores, definitely support them and see if they're shipping online right now, because I'm recording this during the COVID-19 outbreak, so no one can really go out. So it's really whatever can be shipped to you. But anywho, all you need is wooden beads. You don't really need anything else. I'm just choosing to use other material. So, figure out kind of like what you want to do and how elaborate you want to get, because beads do get extremely expensive. So, back to material. Wooden beads, I would recommend getting them in a variety of sizes. Also, you'll need just some twine. So it can be as thin or thick as you want. So you see that one is kind of like maybe medium. I'm looking at it. I'm not sure if it's enough. So I'll probably use my thinner twine instead, especially since I'm thinking about using those pink, I believe those are glass beads, but those pink beads. And since they're smaller, then I need a thinner piece of twine to use to make sure that it can go through the bead. Also, what I would recommend for this project is if you have some kind of binder clip or something else that you could use to clip one end of your twine once you've decided to work, that's great. A pair of scissors, I'm just using these little clippers or whatever they're called. If I think of the official name, I'll throw it up on the video that I just had from jewelry making. Those little clippers I had will also cut through wire, which sometimes I use. But you could just use regular scissors. And that's all you need. Wooden beads, twine, and scissors. And imagination. That is it. That is all, my friends. And so here I'm just checking to make sure that the pink beads will actually go over, or that the twine will actually go into them. And then I'm also checking, and you see how the smaller beads are going inside the larger bead, because the larger beads tend to have a larger hole. And so now I know, like, okay, I can't put them right next to each other. So if I do want to use these pink smaller beads, then I'll need to use the smaller wooden bead or something else next to it in order to prevent it from going inside the larger bead. So I guess this part here is me just kind of thinking through what I want to do for my pattern. And then after you've experimented, you see I'm just using like the first part of the twine to start it out, just because I'm just thinking through what I want to do. Once you have the pattern set, then you're good to go. Now, I'm going to speed this up in a second, but what you'll see is that for the ends, I'm going to make a tassel at the end of this video, but the ends of the garland, I want them to have the same pattern. So I'm trying to figure out like what pattern I want. So then I'll have to make sure that I have enough beads once I get towards the other end of the garland to repeat that pattern. So I'm just kind of like thinking through what I want to do, and ultimately what I decide to do is do like 7 pink of the glass beads, and then I'm going to go up in size with the wooden beads. So I'm going to do 3 of the smallest, 3 of the next smallest, 3 of or excuse me, 3 of the smallest, 3 of the next largest, 3 of the next largest, and then 1 of each going up in size. So you'll see how that pattern plays out. And so really just to have a really good unique garland, just remember that it's nice to have some type of pattern. I mean, you know, of course, break all the rules, right? But usually that makes your garland or whatever, you know, even if you're working on a necklace, it makes it seem more uniform and purposeful, like, you know, some planning actually went into it. So just kind of think about it, even if you're like me where you just decide to make a pattern on the fly. Now you see the twine usually has those little knots in it. So luckily, the twine is thin enough where even the smaller beads were able to go over some of the knots, which is great. And then you also see that I'm using that little clip at the end just to keep the beads close to the beginning, because I want to see how this pattern plays out before I commit to it and have it, you know, where I string it to the bottom of the twine, which you'll see in a second. And so let me go ahead and speed this up so you can see how the beginning of this pattern plays out. Okay, so now I have my pattern set, and now I need to think through how I want the remainder, or the middle part, if you will, of the garland to look. So I'm like looking at my other beads, like I have that black necklace right next to the tray. I haven't worn that necklace in forever, so I definitely want to repurpose the black beads. So I was looking at that like, do I want to use that? But I think I want to use like those brown beads, but I'm not sure exactly how I want to use them. So I'm just experimenting right now and figuring out what I want that pattern to look like. I'm bringing my clip down to the end of the twine because I'm pretty much ready to go. So I'm actually prepping to do the entire string. But right now I'm still in experimenting phase, and you'll see in a second where I decide to even take off what, at least the pattern that I've just started for the middle part, because I realized that in between those little brown pieces, I think just to add like a little color and to tie it into the end, I want to put a pink bead in the middle of it. So I'm going to undo this in a second and then add that pink bead. Alright, so I am loving this pattern. I have decided to do the brown kind of like disc-like bead, then a pink bead, a brown bead, and then 3 large wooden beads. And there is, I guess, some symbolism to this. I love the number 3. To me, It's my lucky number. I was born in March, which has 3 in it. I was born on the 31st, which also has a 3. So there's other things I can mention too, but 3 just has always brought me luck. So I decided to do 3 of the large wooden, and then the next 3 is the disc, the pink, the disc, and then 3 large wooden again. And so what you want to do, oh, let me mention this. So you see how I'm kind of cutting the end of the twine? Because I'm putting the smaller beads through, it kind of made the end of the twine every once in a while kind of unravel a little bit. And so in order to make it easier for me to get the beads through, every 6 or 7 beads or so, I just have to clip the end just a little bit just to make it a little bit easier for the smaller beads to go through. But essentially, after you have your pattern and you make sure that you have enough beads in order to complete your project, then you just go for it. Like, I have plenty of beads there. I want it to be pretty long because I'm making this to go around some smaller plant pots, and you'll see it towards the end of the video where I'm kind of like draping it a little bit over the side of a shelf, so it's going around the pot and draping it around the shelf. So I wanted it long, and I wanted to be able to like take it and put it other places too. Some people actually, instead of doing a garland, they'll make shorter versions of this, and they'll just have it like maybe almost a necklace length kind of garland draped over a door handle or something like that. So it really just depends on what you want to use it for. There's a lot of great examples on Pinterest. And then I'm going to show you a few examples of different places that I can incorporate this garland into my home. So just kind of think about that, you know, what you want your length to be, and then make sure that you have enough beads in order to make it happen. And so that's where probably planning it out might work a little bit better for some, but I'm pretty good at like eyeballing my supplies and going from there. Okay, so I'm going to speed this up a little bit just so you guys can see the process of me beading like crazy to get this done, but it was very therapeutic. I didn't even have any music on. I was just listening to the sounds of the city while I did it, completely unplugged, so it was great. All right, here we go. All right, I'm going to pause for a second right here just because I'm showing you now. I've come to the end. I've actually gone and just did a quick test and wrapped it around a few things just to make sure it's the length that I want. And now I'm replicating the same pattern from the beginning. And you see I'm just counting everything just to make sure I remember that it was like, okay, 7, 3 of one size, 3 of the next size, 3 of the next size, and then 1, 2, 3 of the sizes after that. So it's just remembering what pattern you've created so you can recreate that pattern again at the end, because it just gives it a really cool uniform look. And so it definitely helps to have the wooden beads in a variety of sizes. All right, so now for the tassel. So I'm doing a little cleaning up here, but for the tassel, you need to make sure that you have enough twine to achieve the thickness that you want. So I'm looking through all my rolls of twine and I'm looking at the colors that I have, and then I'm thinking through how thick I want that tassel to be. So if you see that little kind of cartridge or whatever in the top left corner, I have like multiple colors of twine, but the problem is, here it is. I don't think I have enough of it to make like a really good tassel. So I'm kind of thinking through like what I want to do, but I'm like, this is not going to work. So what I've decided to do is just use the twine I have, because here's that other twine that I was looking at earlier, and I'm like, I don't have enough of that either to make two tassels. So let me just go ahead and use the thin twine. So in order to make the tassel, basically I am counting to 25. So I'm going around my four fingers 25 times, and you can go around as many times as you want. It just depends on how thick you want the tassel. I actually saw a tutorial that recommended at least 25 times, and when I went around 25, it seemed kind of thick enough. I didn't want it too thick, and it's going to be a little bristly anyway because it's twine instead of me using yarn or something like that where it's a little bit softer and fuller. And then also, so now I need to create the neck of the tassel, and there's so many different ways to do this, but I just did it really simple where I went around 10 times. And when you do that, remember when you start to leave enough slack so you can tie a knot, and then try to also incorporate it into the tassel itself. So I went around 10 times. And now I am about to tie a knot. And I'm going to do, I think I did 2 knots here, and you want to make sure that it's really, really tight. Okay, so now you see why it's super important to make sure that you leave enough on the ends to make sure that you could tie a good knot. And then you'll see in a second how I just try to incorporate it into the tassel. And also I'm just kind of looking at the loop, just making sure I'm going to be able to get the other piece of twine through it in order to tie it to the garland. So I'm cutting the ends to make the little tassel. And then I'm just looking at it just to make sure that I like the look of the tassel. And then I'm giving myself just a little bit more room at the top so I can actually put the piece of twine you'll see in a second that'll go through it. I'm incorporating the little loose ends into the tassel itself. Sorry that that got cut off, but I cut off the ends just to make sure everything is equal. Now for the moment of truth. You see how I'm like, how am I going to get that through that loop? So there we go. Got lucky. And so I'm just thinking through how I want to tie it. There's a few different techniques people use in order to like make sure that their tie is secure. What I'm going to do is I went through it once, and then I'm going to go through it again. But here's the thing, I'll speed this up in a second, but what I realized is that I needed another bead at the end, a bead that is a little bit larger, so I could go through the bead and then tie a double knot. So let me just show you. Actually, before I show you what I did with the bead, I took a pause and I was like, you know what? Let me just go ahead and create the other tassel just so I can make sure that they both match before permanently putting the other one on. So you see again, I just went around 25 times. I'm going to cut and then make this new tassel. Okay, so back to the first tassel. So if you see down there, I've added one of the smaller wooden beads right next to the small pink glass bead, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with that. So here I am just making sure that I kind of double up and put the twine through twice, which can be a little tricky, especially if you don't make the hole big enough. So you see me struggling just a little bit here, but I'm able to eventually get it through. Okay, got it through. And then I also so once I looped it through twice, I then went through the wooden bead, and that's where now I'm going to tie my knot. And like I said, there's a million different ways. I wasn't able to zoom in on this, but know that after I went through the smaller bead, I then put a knot at the end of that bead. And I went off camera a little bit. Sorry about that. But you see here, I'm now putting the knot. So you see that? And I'm going to do it twice. And I'm just seeing how it looks when everything is super tight or super tight. And once I finish that, then I'm actually going to go over the bead and then make a knot on the other side of the bead. So here's me doing it a second time, just making that knot right on the top of that bead. And it's like very tricky, but you eventually get it. There we go. And then I am going to just go over the bead. I probably could have stopped there and then just cut it and then put some glue, but I'm going to actually go over it again. Phew. Okay. There was a little sweating going on there, trying to get that knot just right. I mean, it was a little rough, but we got through it. But just tie, the point is just tie the knot the best you can. And right now I'm just making sure all the beads are super tight. So I'm kind of like pushing it down to the end of that first tassel now that that first tassel has been secure. And I'm not doing it with a lot of pressure, but just enough just to make sure that it's not going to be too gappy when I lay it out. I realized I probably should have left a little bit more slack on this side, but it works. But anywho, I'm going to do the same thing I did on the other side. I had a little bit of a hard time like seeing through the loop, so I just used my scissors to kind of help me make the loop a little bit bigger so I could get that twine through. Okay, so my apologies for not having a close-up of how I did the tassels. I struggled with it a little bit, so I went off camera. But essentially, you tie a bunch of knots, and if you really want them to be secure, just add like a little super glue or something to the knot just to make sure it doesn't come unraveled. But here's a close-up of the pattern and of the beads. Oh my God, I love the smell of wooden beads. It's so amazing. But you can see the knots that I did at the end. A knot on both sides of the end bead just to make sure it's secure. So how do you use these things, you say, or you ask? Well, you can just wrap it around stuff. It's like so cool because it's like home jewelry, right? You can wrap it around pots, you can wrap it or drape it on a basket. You can even put it around your TV just to dress your TV up a little bit. If you have like any bowls or anything, you can drape it around bowls and other items. It's just like eye candy for your house. I'm like really excited about this garland and I can't wait to make more. It took me, I guess maybe a little over an hour or whatever to do it, but it was so therapeutic and I really enjoyed it. And then last but not least, you can use it on a coffee table. And so it's just decoration. It just adds like a little texture and a little charm to your area. And the fun part about these is you could do like depending on how long you make it, you can like really have fun with it. And it's just another way to dress up your house. If you enjoyed this video, please, give me a thumbs up. Also, I would love to hear from you. So please leave a comment and also subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have crafty stuff like this, and I also interview people on the Studio 78 podcast that are crafters that are making money from the things they love. Anywho, thanks for tuning in.